You're listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show, where wealth is empowering, purpose is crucial, and high vibes are non-negotiable. And now, here's your host, certified business coach and practical woo strategist, Sarah J. Loureiro.
All right, welcome back everyone to the Uplevel Your Online Business podcast. Today I am here with the amazing Darcy Luoma. Darcy is the author of Thoughtfully Fit and is a highly sought after coaching consultant who's worked with more than 500 organizations in 48 industries to create high performing people and teams. And so she balances her thriving business with raising her two energetic teenage daughters and competing in triathlons. And we have a really intense, really inspiring story for you. Welcome, Darcy. I'm so happy that you've been joining us today.
Thank you, Sarah. It's so great to be here.
Yeah. And so I actually also had Darcy on my summit and we had such a great conversation and there was so much to talk about that I was like, you need to come back. We need to have another conversation specifically about what we're going to be talking to everyone about today. So Darcy, how long ago did you start Thoughtfully Fit and this whole coaching business? How long has it been now?
So I finished my career in the U.S. Senate on January 2nd, 2013, and I launched my business officially January 3rd. So about whatever that is, 8-9 years.
8-9 years, yeah, 8-9 years. Perfect. And how long in your business were you solo? Were you just trying to do everything on your own? Like, how long did it take you to really build up a team?
Yeah. So January, I launched, I told my husband, he was a full-time stay-at-home dad. We had two young daughters. And I said, I got to go gonzo because everything I've read says that the majority of small businesses fail within the first 2 years. So we designed it. I'm going nuts. And he said, yep, I got the home front. You go for it. I think it was within, I don't even remember anymore. If it was within 3 to 6 months, I realized I needed to make my first hire to get an assistant. And so pretty quickly, I brought on somebody. By 2015, the end of year 2 or middle of year 2, I had so much business. I didn't have capacity. I was overwhelmed. And so I hired a business coach and I said, okay, I don't want to turn business away. How can we deal with this? And he said, well, two things. You got to raise your prices and expand the scope of your team. So if you want to keep having the impact you're having, but you don't want to be working harder, bring on more people. So we spent a year recruiting, put together an RFP and ended up bringing on 6 additional coaches and consultants. And we launched them January of 2016.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So within a span of 3 years, you got yourself from solo to 6 coaches underneath you. That's very impressive too.
Thank you.
And so what would you say would you attribute like primarily to the success that you had early on in your business?
A couple of things. One is I had an anchor client. So I did not launch my business becoming an entrepreneur and small business owner until I made sure I had an anchor client. I had a year-long contract. If I got no other business, I knew that I would be okay and we could pay the bills. So it helped me to not be existing in a place of fear. And it helped me to not be in that rat race, right? And then also I had spent, when I think about the trajectory of my career, I would have loved to have started my business 10 years earlier, 15 years earlier. I didn't for lots of reasons. I didn't have the courage. But the reality is I had spent that time developing strong relationships and connections. And so when I launched my business, I had already a reputation from my career in the U.S. Senate and politics that I was a known entity. And I think those relationships, so I started to reach out and to have coffee and lunch and just conversations with people about what I was doing and what my passion was. And then the third thing I did is probably year or two leading up to starting full-time my business, I did a bunch of informational interviews with business owners who I respected, who had models and successful companies that I wanted to aspire to be. And I asked them, what did you do right? What do you wish you had known when you were in my shoes at this point, beginning and starting a business? What did you do wrong? And what are the lessons you learned?
Oh, that's phenomenal. I love that. And what I love even by hearing you and listening to you, and for anyone who's listening to this podcast, if you already saw the First Six Figure Summit, Darcy and I talked a lot about how like her overnight success was 10 years in the making, because of, like every single little thing that you do. And I think this is also a little bit of the crux of what we're going to be talking about today, but everything that we do serves a purpose, whether or not we know it, right? So even when you were doing all of this connecting for so many years, and you're even telling yourself, I would have loved to start this business sooner, but the reason why it became such a success is because I spent so many years, right? Dealing with people, connecting with people, being a voice for people, and just really getting to know other people and creating relationships. I think it's such a nice thing to hear as well that, like everything that you're doing today, all of the activities that you're doing today are going to contribute to your success tomorrow.
100%. The other thing that I did over that 10 years and probably even longer is I invested in my skills and development. If you're in a service industry, your use of self is the most important tool you have. So how I show up and present myself is the best tool that I have. So I hired a lot of coaches. I went through therapy. I had mentors. I got certified in coaching. I got my master's degree. I did a lot of work. So by the time I launched my business, I was standing on a pretty foundation of credentials that helped me not only have the confidence and the skills, but then also the credibility.
Right. Yeah. And it's all of that compounded, right? So just like everything is leading you up to a new moment. Everything is leading you up to a new moment. And I think it's so beautiful that you can kind of talk about all of that and really how much of that you amassed, right? That was all leading you up to the point where you started your business and you did really well. Now, as people probably know from the title of this podcast, we're going into some intense stuff right now too, because a few years into your business, you had a massive bomb dropped on you. And here you are to tell us about it too. And I think that there are a lot of people out there who go through very similar things. But oftentimes we feel kind of helpless in these situations. So do you want to talk to us a little bit more about what happened there, what that bomb was?
Absolutely. So my team, we hired, we got them in place. And in early January of 2016, we had a 2-day retreat in Madison, onboarding, team building retreat. I hired a coaching coordinator. We got all of our systems and processes in place and we put it out to the world. And 3 months later, so it was St. Patrick's Day, March 17th of 2016, I got a phone call from my neighbor. And I picked up, which was surprising because I was at a professional conference. And I said, hey, what's going on? Darcy, what's going on at your house? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not home. Why? She said, there's a SWAT team. There are police cars. There's got to be at least 40 or 50 officers surrounding your house with guns. And they just took John out, handcuffed and barefoot. And he wouldn't look at us. They drove him away in the squad car. And I said, what? My husband? What are you talking about? I was completely blindsided in that moment and found out later that my husband was arrested for sexual assault of a minor he had met online. He was taken away that day. He was put in jail and he never came home. He was ultimately sentenced and convicted to 10 years in prison. And my world, it was the biggest nightmare, Sarah, it wasn't even a night. I never had a nightmare that bad. In an instant, my world turned completely upside down.
Yeah. And here you are, this person who's talking to people about becoming thoughtfully fit and building high performance teams. And meanwhile, your team at home just blew up.
It did.
Right?
It totally blew up.
How did that feel in that moment, especially navigating this business and being a mom? Like what did all of that feel like to you?
Oh my God. I was scared. That was I was scared. I was scared for my daughters. They had never gone a day without their dad tucking them in and making breakfast. He did everything. He took them to dentist appointments and Girl Scout cookies and you name it. And all of a sudden he's gone. I didn't do grocery shopping. I didn't know how to use our laundry machine. I didn't know if you put oil in the lawnmower or gas. I mean, we had designed that for our family and it worked. And all of a sudden I'm like, I don't know how to move forward. I don't know how to be a single parent. I know nothing about the legal system. The charges were so severe that not only did my husband have to have an attorney, I had to hire my own attorney, criminal defense attorney. I hired a crisis communications firm because my business is based on reputation and credibility. And I was scared that it was going to be decimated. I had to get a divorce. It was the day before our 10-year wedding anniversary, the week before we were going on a spring break trip of renting an RV to go to all these state parks. And so, and then I was angry. I was confused. This was the person I loved with all my heart. And I thought we had a good marriage. And I had no idea he had this double life. Mm-hmm. So I was overwhelmed. I didn't know where to start. It was like, and then, not to mention just the pure logistics of the search warrant that they executed that took 6 hours. I went in the house, every single drawer, every closet, everything was in piles in every single room. And so emotionally, I'm a disaster. And then physically, my house was a disaster as well.
Mm-hmm. And in those moments, were you just kind of like, why me? Why did this have to happen to me? Why did this have to happen to me, to my daughters? Like, were there a lot of those questions in your mind?
Yeah, for me, it was a little bit like a kind of a cousin of that, but because I'm a rule follower. Mm-hmm. I do things by the books. I mean, there's some people who are, I can't remember the book that has the different titles if you're more edgy, but anyway, it doesn't matter. What's that?
The Rebel.
Yes, The Rebel. Thank you. I am not a rebel. And so for me, I'm like, wait, how did I get here? I follow the rules. I'm a good girl. Wait, how did I get here? I'm hiring a lawyer and a crisis communication. Like that to me was really the primary. And then it turned into over time, why did this happen? Not like why me, poor me, but like, there's got to be some bigger thing at play here of why this happened and how does this play out in my life in a bigger way? That became the question. Like why? Okay, help me understand. Higher power, right? Mm-hmm. God, whatever it is. Like for me, the spiritual part of it was help me understand because I didn't sign up for this. I didn't expect it, but there's got to be some reason that this is happening.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think it's so brave that you're even coming out and speaking about it on this podcast, speaking about it, everywhere that you have, because so many people would probably just want to be like, I can't talk about this, right? If I talk about this, like how much shame is probably involved with so many people who I think go through not the same thing, but really similar things where their life is just turned upside down and you're forced to be a leader.
Well, yes. And let me be clear. Don't give me too much credit, Sarah, because that wasn't the starting point at all. As a matter of fact, my attorney said, when I hired an attorney, he said, don't talk to anybody about anything. These charges are severe. Don't talk. You don't know if you are a suspect and what's going on. And so I didn't even tell my parents. I didn't tell anybody until it was on the news. And then it was all over the news and social media. And then I hid and I kind of went into a cave for a while by design. That's what my my attorney and my therapist and my crisis communications person said, you got to put a bubble around yourself right now. And we have to have a plan. We need to create a plan. And we created a plan. We had A list, B list, C list. We had messaging, who gets a phone call, who gets an email, who, right. And it was, and we managed that well. With our whole strategy, my husband, when we got married, I did not take his last name. And so our whole strategy was to keep me out of the media and to preserve my identity and my reputation. And so I had to shut down all of our social media accounts, as you know, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We had pictures everywhere of anniversaries and, that was horrible, having to go through all of those and see the happy moments, shut all those down. And so when it was after his sentence, and it was probably about, 2 years in, where it was about a year and a half when I started to come back out publicly, and I would start to have lunch with people and coffee dates. And there would be some version of this happening. We'd sit down and we'd be having chit chat and eating lunch and talking small talk. And then the person would say, so how are you? And I'd be like, oh God, do they know? Do they not know? And it was awful, because these were clients, and it's not appropriate to talk about my husband who's a convicted felon, my ex-husband. And yet, but if they don't know, I don't want to bring it up. But if they do know, then it feels weird to be like, I'm fine. I hated that. So Brava magazine, it was a women's magazine, came to me and said, we'd like to do a cover story on you. And I went to my daughters first, and I asked them, what do you think? They want to do a cover story on Mom. And they're like, yeah, that's great. And I'm like, well, no, but it'd be about Dad and the arrest and what happened. It's like, that's fine, Mom. You're strong. We can get through it. So then I went to my team and I asked them, and across the board, every one of them said, no, don't do it. And I said, but why? Because, Darcy, we've spent the last 2 or 3 years trying to keep you out of the media. Why would you now go public with your story? And I said, because hiding and living a lie, even if it's just a lie of omission, is exhausting, and it's getting in the way of connection. And I hate it. I just don't like it. So I convinced them, and the cover story came out, and there it was. And all of a sudden it's public, and there's then, news stories, and then that was the precursor to writing the book that does outline how Thoughtfully Fit, our leadership model that we use with coaching clients, helped me when I became ground zero to utilize it in my own life.
Wow. I feel like I had this sunken feeling right there of oh my goodness, right? It's like that breaking point where it's almost like your attorney, your crisis management, all of those people were keeping you in this like shame area, right? And this area of like, we cannot talk about this because, it has something or might have something to do with you. And all of a sudden you were there and you were just like, no, I'm not keeping this a secret anymore. I'm tired.
And I'm exhausted from hiding this. And it's, Brene Brown talks about vulnerability breeds connection and breeds trust and breeds vulnerability. Here I am putting up this wall and being anti-vulnerable, and it didn't feel good. It wasn't authentic.
Right. And I think we were talking a little bit about leadership, and you were like, no, I was hiding. But in that hiding, you were forced to lead in a specific way as well, right? What really made you get through all of that? And what would you say to anyone who's maybe listening to this, who's maybe gone through something similar in terms of the emotions, in terms of the shame, in terms of my life has completely turned upside down. What do I do with it? How did you get out of that? What really helped you in that situation?
So one of the things I feel blessed, first of all, I had a phenomenal team. And so our company was able to continue to move forward while I pulled back, and nobody really knew that I pulled back because we were doing social media posts and blogs and newsletters and all of that. And they didn't really notice that I wasn't doing keynotes and that I wasn't out doing team retreats but at the end of the day, I had spent 5 years researching and developing this Thoughtfully Fit model that was based on the obstacles that I found my clients. I coached 1,300 clients. I've coached everybody through every problem you could imagine. And Thoughtfully Fit is the plan that I created to help my clients navigate obstacles in their lives. Small obstacles, annoying coworkers, conflict, and big obstacles. And so I became ground zero to use my model. And at the core, and there's lots of strategies in it, but there's at the core. So thoughtfully fit is a metaphor. Just like if you're physically fit, every movement is easier and you're less likely to get injured. If you're thoughtfully fit and you have a strong core, your relationships are easier. Your life is easier. You're less likely to have conflict. That doesn't mean that adversity, challenges, obstacles aren't going to come your way. They are. But if you have engaged your core and built the strength of your core, you can handle yourself thoughtfully. And at the core of the model are 3 simple steps. And believe me, Sarah, I did these over and over and over again. Step 1 is to pause, like get off of autopilot. When the mom asked me, did you have anything to do with this? My first knee-jerk reaction was, are you kidding? Right? That autopilot to be angry and to lash out. Some people's knee-jerk reaction would be to silently stew and shut down. In that moment, you got to pause. Step 2 is to think. And in the think, that's where you're asking yourself some thoughtful questions. Okay, what do I need right now? How can I stay calm? What's triggering me? And then step 3 is to act. And you act thoughtfully with the new awareness you have from taking, it might be a moment, that pause and think. It might be 10 seconds, but it's enough to give you the ability to act thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. And I became ground zero to test drive my model in the most extreme way, multiple times a day.
Mm-hmm. 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 I love that. And I think it's so authentic and it's so simple, right? Like it's something that's so simple, yet so many of us don't do because of the fact that we're constantly in this autopilot, right? And I think that when you're kind of in those situations where you kind of don't have another choice, you're completely outside of your comfort zone. And in that situation, right, you don't really have any other choice. But then that's also where we create the biggest growth, right?
Absolutely. And I want to underscore something you just said, because that's our default. I don't have any other choice. So when something happens, right, when there's conflict or some life is hard, we oftentimes feel like there are no choices, or there's only 2 bad choices. My job sucks. I can quit, or I can stay and be miserable. And the reality is, when you are engaging your core, you're exploring, there's lots of choices. The other piece of the core of the thoughtfully fit model is you focus on what you control. And a lot of times we think things are out of our control. The pandemic is wreaking havoc on my business, and I don't control that. There's so much that's out of my control and so much I don't control. At the core, you focus on, what do I control? Okay, I control how I respond. I control what I do, what I say. And then what are my choices? So instead of just looking at it from 2 bad choices, or I have no choices, you pause and think. And those might be 2 questions you ask yourself. Okay. What do I control right now? I just got triggered. I just got this awful email that somebody sent me, and they hit reply all. And I just want to pound out and get defensive and pause, think. How do I want to show up? What's the 2% truth in this email? What can I do that might neutralize it? And then maybe you act and you pick up the phone and say, hey, just got your email and I'm noticing I'm a little triggered and I'm feeling a little bit, a little angry. And I just wanted to see what was behind it, because it really took me off guard. And then maybe that person, who knows, says, oh God, sorry. I had just gotten in a fight with my direct report or my boss or, whatever. Or, yeah, I'm kind of angry and I feel like we need to talk. But if you can focus on what you control and explore your choices, then you can move forward thoughtfully. And I did that over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And while we're talking about this, and while we're talking about, going through something so awful. And having to use, I mean, so many people who even listen to this podcast are coaches, right? Coaches are people who are interested in becoming leaders, doing something for themselves. And so, I think that we all have this, okay, well, this is how I would do things. But then it's all of a sudden when you're presented with it, and when it's the only choice you have, it completely changes your life as well, which is, your thoughtfully fit model also changed your life in a good way. How have you become a better leader, and how have you become a better person? And how has this been almost a blessing in disguise for you after all of that turmoil?
You hear about people who, lost a limb or went bankrupt or had some huge adversity. And they say, if I had to do it again, I'd do it. I learned so much. And you're like, really? I mean, come on. I am so much stronger because of this. I have a deeper connection with my daughters. I have forgiven my husband. I have a better better relationship with my ex-husband than I ever thought was possible. I've learned compassion. I am a better coach. I am a better coach. And as a matter of fact, my fear in going public would be that I would lose clients. The exact opposite happened. Not only did I have clients say, oh my gosh, like that you could make it through that and survive. I want to work with you. Whatever you did, I want that. And then I also had people come out of the woodwork who said, oh, I haven't talked to anybody about this, but my business partner embezzled from me and I've been hiding and I'm in shame and or my husband, you wouldn't believe how many people have come out of the woodwork with their own stories that they didn't know how to navigate, that I can be a safe place without judgment to say, yeah, let's work through this. You'll get through it. And to provide not only hope, but also a system and a process to work through it. Because Thoughtfully Fit, I had spent 5 years actively researching and developing it. That's on top of the 17 years I spent coaching and helping people navigate their people problems. And so I'm a better mom. I'm a stronger business owner, and I am more compassionate. So this past weekend, I went and spoke for the 4th time at the women's prison in Denver. I would never have done that, Sarah, if this hadn't happened. First of all, I would have thought, what do I have to say? I don't connect with these women. Why do they want to hear from me? It was so powerful. They're human. They're flawed, just like I'm human and I'm flawed. We all have something that probably, if we interviewed everybody who was a fan of yours, Sarah, and said, is there something you've done that you would not want on the nightly news at 10 o'clock tonight? They'd probably all say, yeah, we're flawed, we're broken, we're human. And so it's helped me to be able to be a stronger coach and consultant and keynote speaker.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's so incredible. It's so incredible that you have opened up about all of this too, right? Because I feel like you never know. You never know what someone has experienced. And I think it's exactly what you said. You're inspiring other people to also open up themselves. And so if someone's listening to this right now and they have either they're in the middle of something like this, or they just kind of got out of it where their entire world was, upside down, right? They had to focus on their business. It was like there was no other choice, or they're just tired of living in that place of shame, or that place of where they feel like they can't fully express themselves. What type of tips, what would you want to say to them right now?
Absolutely. It all comes back to build your core, engage your core. So just like if you want to have a strong physical core, you don't do sit-ups, once a month and call it a day. You're not going to get a strong core. You have to be consistent and train and practice. Anybody who is out there right now, whether you are in the middle of a messy situation, whether you have come through one, or whether you're waiting for your next one, because that's the only thing that's certain, is that there's going to be more adversity and uncertainty and conflict, period. That's the only thing that we know. Start training right now today. When you finish listening to your favorite podcast host, Sarah, and you run to the grocery store and somebody cuts you off for that parking spot, and your immediate reaction is to flip them off and to get angry, pause. Practice. I guarantee in the next hour, you'll have an opportunity to practice. Pause. take a breath, think, do I really want to give my energy to this stranger? Is this really worth me being angry about? And then act. And maybe you smile and wave them in and think, you know what? I don't have my 10,000 steps anyway. I'm going to go park at the end. And keep engaging your core on the small stuff. As soon as you notice that you're feeling triggered, that you're angry, as soon as you notice you get an email and somebody's asking you to do something, and your knee-jerk reaction is to be a people pleaser and to say yes, pause, think, how does this serve my work-life balance? How does this serve my priorities? How does saying yes serve me? And if I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? And then act. And maybe you have the courage to say, oh, thank you for thinking of me. I have to pass. I'm so grateful, but I can't. And then when you keep practicing on the small stuff, that's the only reason I was able to get through this, Sarah, is because I had been practicing and training. So when it came to it, I was able to pause in the moment instead of overreact and make things worse. That's my challenge. That's your core workout.
I love it. And I think that what really speaks to me there is just making sure that you're defining your own strong sense of self. And so when you have that sense of self defined, when you, Darcy, know that you're not bad, that you did not do anything bad, that you were doing the best that you could, right? And when you really work on that own self-love that I'm sure that you've been working on for, decades, even before becoming a coach, right? Like all of that work has brought you to this point as well. And I think that that's all of our life work, right? I think that so many people think, okay, well, business is different, right? But business is the same. And I think that the more that we can really express that authentic self, right? And that whole pause that you're talking about, the pausing is like, well, what does intuitive Darcy feel? Or, like, what is the intuitive? What is like the soft voice inside? What does she want to say to this, right? How is she going to react to this? And when we do that so much more often, both in life and in business, I mean, it's just, everything just becomes so much easier. And then you get to the point where, if you have these terrible things that happen to you, you're also understanding, what are they here to teach me about? And how am I going to come out of this as a stronger human being?
Absolutely. And I'll add one more thing, if I can, Sarah, that it's we also do bad things. So you can have a strong sense of self, and part of having a strong sense of self might be like, I screwed up. That I didn't make the right move there. Okay, I need to pause and stop going down that path of destruction and think, how can I make this right? What's the courageous thing to do to right the ship, to own my part, to be vulnerable enough to say, I overreacted, I screwed up, I did the wrong thing, and make it right. So that sense of self is so critical. And it's also okay if you have screwed up. You're human.
Mm-hmm. 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 Oh, that's so beautiful. And I think this is just so powerful because, like I said, we don't talk about this stuff, right? Like even when we get people on the podcast, it's like, we're going to talk about our models. We're going to talk about how much we succeeded, and we're going to talk about all the steps that came there. But what about the crappy stuff? What about the messy stuff? And I feel like we all have gone through these things, and by really working through them, right? And by really applying everything that we have taught and have been taught in coaching, like these are really important things too, right? These are really, really important aspects of life and of business. And I think one thing that we were talking about right before we hit record too was, isn't it great that you prepared yourself with your team before this even happened, right? So isn't it great that even with that process, everything was preparing you for a greater sense of, what is Darcy Luoma really capable of, right? Like, I'm sure that God or the universe was there and being like, okay, Darcy, we need to be prepared for this, right? Like something is going to happen, but we know that you're going to come out of it, and we know that you're going to come out of it a better person.
Absolutely. And we had worked really hard on our team to create systems and processes. It's the whole hit by the bus factor. So right. If I or anybody on the team got hit by a bus, would somebody else be able to step in and execute? we had worked really hard to have clear systems and processes. So then when I did need to step away, the system kept running. The business kept going.
And where would you say that you are now after all of that happened? So we talked about, like how you're a better mom, how all of these things, but like, is there anything else that came out of all of this for you that you're like, now I want to explore this new thing in my business or this new thing in my life?
Yeah. So just as of, where I am now, my book just got published. It was June 1st. And that was that was a long process to figure out. I was, as much as I said, I was courageous to put my story out there, putting it out there in the form of a book. I had to strip down all vulnerabilities and really dig in and share the lessons learned, the failures. So I'm in the process right now. We're just in the first quarter of having the book out there. So where I am right now is doing a lot of keynotes about the book, virtual book tours. I just did my first in-person book signing, which was really exciting, and podcasts. And we're working on book number 2, which will be a workbook that is a companion to Thoughtfully Fit. So if somebody reads it and they're like, oh, this is so good, and then they want to actually execute with their team or with themselves, they can do that as well. We also are in the place as a business we because of COVID, we pivoted to having so much online. We are now creating a Thoughtfully Fit gym that we're going to be launching in January of 2022. That people, if they want more and they want support, it's all online. They can come just like you go to the regular gym for community and support and coaches and trainers. We're developing a gym that people can come to be able to get support to handle themselves thoughtfully in any situation.
That's amazing. That's genius. How exciting. There's so many things that you've been working on. The Thoughtfully Fit book, congratulations on that. It looks incredible. And tell us, where can everyone find you? If anyone wants to hear more about you, more about your story, connect with you, where are the places that they can go?
Thank you. So two main places, my website, darcyluoma.com, and that's got links to all my social media. It also has all of our blogs. Every week we've got a new blog that comes out every Thursday. I've got a Thoughtfully Fit Thursday video. And so those are all archived there. And then it talks about our services and coaching and speaking and consulting. Thoughtfullyfit.com, some people may want to go to because that has a free quiz. And if anybody is curious about, so the model is based around the 6 biggest obstacles that I saw my clients get in the way of being successful in life and business. And so the quiz, it's 2 or 3 minutes, it's free, will spit out your biggest hurdle. Which of these is your biggest hurdle that gets in the way of your life and business success? And then some strategies on how to start to train to overcome and clear that hurdle. So that's the other place that people might want to go to start the journey of awareness and training to get thoughtfully fit.
Beautiful. All right. Well, Darcy, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your story and really for being such an inspiration for so many people who might be going through something similar.
It's an honor. I appreciate you inviting me. Your platform and your message and your fans are incredible. It really is fun getting to know you, and I look forward to more collaboration.
Yeah, me too. All right. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show. If you enjoy our show and would like the show notes and free goodies about how to grow your online coaching business, head over to sarahjlorero.com for more information. We hope you'll tune in next time.